Let's talk about the road to TEDx Hobart. Welcome to Strong for Life Live or the Strong for Life podcast. If you're catching it live, you must be listening in on the Strong for Life, Become Strong for Life Facebook group or the Coach Josh Wood YouTube channel. Now, if you're tuning in for the first time, welcome. This is the podcast for busy parents and professionals. We keep every episode to about 20 minutes or less, trying to give you some interesting tidbits for that drive to pick up your kids or to drive back from school or to work or wherever you're going. But I try to keep it short and I try to keep it to the point. We usually stick to one topic and hammer on about that and give you some things to think about and hopefully some useful information. If you are catching this on any of the podcast platforms, Spotify, Apple, where else is it? YouTube and iHeartRadio, welcome. Please take a moment to like, rate, review, share with your friends, record an episode, put it on a floppy disk, and send it to your grandmother. All of that helps. It really does. And if you have any questions, you're always welcome to reach out and shoot me a message on any of those platforms or just get in touch through Coach Josh Wood on Instagram or strongforlife.online. Questions drive the show because someone usually asks me a question during the week and they're like, hey, what about this? What about body recomposition? How do I train for weight loss versus gaining muscle? And that becomes the topic of the next episode. So if you want to know something, ask, and I might be able to do an episode on it. But today, we're doing something a little different. First, announcements. Oh yeah, I should tell you. Coach Josh Wood down here in Hobart, Tasmania. It's 10 in the morning on Tuesday, the 14th of May. And on Saturday, I gave a TED Talk, a TEDx talk. But before I get into that, let's talk about announcements. I'm trying to think. Big announcements. Well, the TED Talk is done, so that's not an announcement anymore. The video should be up on the YouTube channel eventually. It takes some time for them to put those together and then have TED headquarters put it up on their channel. This weekend, I'll be competing in a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu tournament, which is cool. And, yes, the vault. So the Strong for Life Members Vault is open. It is the ultimate fitness resource, giving you, well, years and years and years of coaching experience, of programs and nutrition resources, all available anytime, any place on a mobile-friendly web app. So you can find that on the website, strongforlife.online, or you can find it in the show notes where there should be a link. I have, I think, 7 more programs to go up on that. It's an ever-living, ever-growing database. So I'll be updating that every month with either new resources or new programs. So check that out. If you're needing a program or information on how to set up your own training, nutrition help, that is the most accessible option. But of course, I'm always available for one-on-one coaching as long as there are spots available. Now let's talk about TEDx. So, man, where do I start? All right, let's start at the beginning. Now, I was really young when I was born in Portland, Oregon. And then a bunch of stuff happened, and I moved to the Midwest. And I grew up in Minnesota. Then I moved to Australia in 2008, and I've been here ever since. I did a lot of things. And I worked in fitness and health, teaching massage, teaching personal training courses, coaching in gyms, strength facilities, coaching in boxing facilities, building my ability to speak and educate. And my goal is always to try to make things simple. I don't teach or speak with the fitness professional mind. I always try to imagine I'm speaking to my clients who come from a range of backgrounds. So I try to use as little jargon as possible and streamline and make things simple and understandable. And I've spent a lot of years speaking in various contexts, coaching, teaching health and fitness in the classroom, and ultimately running workshops and seminars. And last year in November, I saw that there was applications for TEDx Hobart. And I was like, okay, that looks cool. Yeah, neat, whatever. But a friend of mine who also works in the co-working space that I rent out once in a while in the city was like, hey, you should apply. And I'm like, you think? He's like, yeah, you should apply. You should apply, and I think think you'd probably do well. I'm like, okay, let me have a think about what I want to talk about. Because TEDx Hobart was, each TEDx has a theme. And this one was the ripple effect. And so I had a little think, and I put in an application. I put in an application amongst 300 other people from all over the world who applied for this event. And my talk was called 6 Habits to Eat Like an Adult. And it's all around our personal responsibility to make a change for the next generation. If our kids are having a problem with their relationship with food, it's our problem. And that's the ripple effect. You know, everything we do in life and how we eat and interact with food is based around our own habits that we developed from our parents or whoever our adult authority figures were. That combined with who we became as teenagers when we were rebelling and creating our own sense of self creates our adult habits usually. And so my whole talk was like, you have a choice. You have to make adult decisions, and you have to create a better relationship with food, and not just for yourself, but for those who depend on you. And I had this idea. I was like, okay, well, I give the How to Eat Like an Adult workshop, which is like 2.5 hours of just learning about nutrition. What are your calories? What are macros? Where do you get your nutrients from? How much are you supposed to get? That kind of thing. I was like, okay, maybe I can streamline this. Maybe I can just take this from 2.5 hours and leave out all the educational components and make it a call to action and explain why in a world where 1 billion people have obesity, and obesity is now a greater risk to world health than even hunger. I can start on that platform. Oh, one of my lights went out behind me. I can start on that platform and make it a call to action. Make it a call to action that says, hey, this is happening because we are not doing something right. So it's like, okay, I can make this work. And so I applied. And then I got shortlisted. And it must have been January. I think January, the shortlist got notified. And then we had to do a 60-second pitch. A 60-second video explaining what we want to talk about and how that's relevant and can make a change and how that is related to the ripple effect. And so I did. That was in January, and I think it was late Jan, maybe early Feb, that I got the confirmation, hey, you're going to give a TEDx talk. And so this big process took place where I had to work within the group, and we had speaking coaches. Speaking coaches, there's probably some other term as well, but we had speaking coaches, and we had to create a script and run through it and record video and go over it with one of the coaches to make sure it all made sense. And it was like this big process from November up until last Saturday, the 11th of May, of creating this 15-minute talk. I think I clocked in at 12. You know, TED Talk's supposed to be about 15 minutes. And so 6 months, dozens and dozens of hours of writing and rewriting and running through and working on that and practicing and practicing and practicing. And I was practicing and running through my talk up until the minute before my name was called to go on stage. And it's this wild, like, accelerating avalanche where you think you have all this time, you put in your work, and then everything accelerates until you know what you're talking about, and then it's all about how to present on the stage. And you know, we had a rehearsal day with the spotlights and in theater, and you know, I don't know, it's an interesting experience because I'm what some people might call a go-getter. I go out and do things that scare me because they scare me. So, you know, I've been in the ring and I've fought. I've had the shit kicked out of me. in front of a lot of people in an official way. I've competed in strength sports. I've been on stages and in rings and on platforms and put myself out there and put myself at risk and pushed myself, and then had to actually pressure test myself in front of a lot of people in multiple domains. And this was one of those situations. But it's different because no one's going to punch me in the face. Probably. Nothing heavy is going to drop on my head. I'm unlikely to break my back trying to lift something heavy. Yet, it was the same feeling. It was the same feeling of this sort of like periodized progression of practice and training leading up to this massive challenge. And they say, what is it, the 7 Ps? Proper prior planning prevents piss poor performance. One thing I rarely lack is preparation, because I'm always working towards a challenge or a goal. It gives me purpose, keeps me on track. And like I said, up until the minute before they called my name, I was practicing. I was practicing. I knew my talk. I know what I talk about. I'm familiar with the subject matter. I'm pretty comfortable talking in front of people. But the pressure's always on. And that nervousness, that anxiety is always there until it's go time. And I had a couple talks with some of the other speakers, and one thing I tried to remind everyone of is like, we're all nervous, but your body doesn't know the difference between anxiety and nervousness. Your body doesn't know the difference between anxiety and nervousness and excitement. It's the same physiological response. It's the same adrenaline dump and high cortisol, and it makes you shaky and jittery and itchy. But how you interpret it is what makes the difference. How you interpret that adrenaline dump. Am I nervous and afraid, or am I excited? Am I excited and chomping at the bit and rearing to go? And so when you feel that, when you're behind a curtain, hearing the person in front of you speak, and then you hear them call your name, the same feeling can be fear or excitement, depending on how you've prepared and how you frame it. And so every time I got a jiu-jitsu tournament this weekend, and that's fine. I've already got the nerves. I've already got the jitters. I'm already like, oh, geez, man. Like, you don't know what's going to happen. But I prepared as best I can in the short time frame that I've been doing jiu-jitsu. I started again in January after not having done any jiu-jitsu since my early 20s, so 13 plus years. And I just go, oh boy, adrenaline dump, oh gosh, getting jittery, getting shaky, having a hard time sleeping. No. I'm not worried. I'm excited. I can't wait because I put in the preparation. And if you put in that preparation, when it's go time, you'll know what to do because you don't have to think about it. There's an old saying in the martial arts. It's, sweat in the dojo so you don't bleed on the battlefield. You put in the preparation and you do it right. And you do it with mindfulness. And you train hard, mentally or physically, or whatever you're undertaking. Then you have to trust yourself. You have to trust your body. You have to trust your mind to know what it's supposed to do. And there's a couple sides to that, because you can't trust yourself. You can't trust your body. You're going to have a hard time reframing those nerves as excitement if you haven't tested yourself multiple times. If it's your first time doing something big, you will be nervous. But if you put in the preparation, you'll be fine. And the more you do that, Not that the nervousness goes away, but the better you'll understand how to reframe that as excitement. The better you'll understand that you might be nervous, but you know that once you get out on that playing field, on that podium of challenge, that platform that you're going to be on, whatever it is, once you undertake the challenge, once the bell rings or the ref says go, or someone calls your name and you have to walk out onto that stage, if you've put in the preparation and you've pressure tested yourself multiple times for years, you know it's going to be okay. You know what the worst case scenario is, and that you can trust yourself. And that's confidence. And I've talked about this before, is confidence comes through proving your competence. Confidence comes through proving your competence. Confidence can be faked superficially, but until you've been pressure tested and you've put in proper preparation, you can't really trust yourself. And so this talk, the TED Talk, my talk, 6 Habits to Eat Like an Adult, was something that I've been preparing for my entire adult life by constantly pressure testing myself in whatever domain I can get involved in, whether it's purely skill-based sports like archery, whether it's boxing, jiu-jitsu, strongman, powerlifting, workshops, seminars, always pressure testing myself. And it finally came down to like standing behind that big red curtain, and they say, our next speaker, Josh Wood. And then everything just kicked into place. It was go time. There was no more time for nerves. There was just doing what I've been practicing for years. And that kind of comfort in my capacity is something that can't be faked, because I was hella nervous. But I knew if I kept working on my process, it was going to be fine. And then I got out there. I walked out. I looked into the crowd, which I couldn't see because there were spotlights in my face. There was, I think, 200 people right in front of me. And I did my thing. And it was awesome. It's a big day. We started at 7:30 in the morning and we wrapped up at like 5. And then we all went out for dinner and drinks. But it's a wild experience. And I don't know if there's any lessons here today. I don't know if I'm teaching anything or trying to give you anything practical, except that this is my experience. And this is what I have been doing for a long time. And each time, the challenge gets bigger. But a challenge is a challenge. And the better you understand your process and the more time you put into preparing yourself, the more confidence in yourself you will have, and the better you will be able to undertake future challenges. Everything feels harder if you don't challenge yourself. Life feels really, really tough if you haven't put yourself out there and pressure tested your capacity. 6 months to prepare for a 12-minute talk. It's a lot more preparation than I've done for a lot of things. And that's it. It was just about putting in those little bits of work every day. And that's the same way you build capacity in any field. So that's my story. That's my story for today. I hope it was interesting and maybe gave you something to think about. If you have any questions, please let me know. I, of course, will be posting the TEDx talk everywhere once it's up on the official TED YouTube page, but because it has to be, all the speakers have to be, their talks have to be clipped up and edited and polished and then sent to TED, and then TED has to then approve it and then upload it onto their YouTube channel. But once it's there, it could be a couple months. I'll be sure to let you know. In the meantime, have a good week, and let me know if you have any questions.